Good morning and welcome to Cover 2 Cook. We're going to talk about a little bit of the Thursday night football. We're going to talk about Matt Saluka's situation, the quarterback at UNLV, and what was the outcome of all this and what research we came out with this. We're going to talk about our must-watch games for the college football Saturday and our bets. But before I get too far, let me bring on my co-host, Mr. Tim Cook. How you doing today?
I am doing good. Excited about another week. What are we? Week 6 already in the NCAA football season. It's almost half over. Doesn't even seem like. It seemed like we just started Labor Day weekend.
It is. And honestly, this is our 20th episode. 20th episode
Wow.
where we're dropping today. So it is exciting, but let's get it started right off the bat. Let's talk about that Thursday night football game. Kirk Cousins throws for 500, and I'm not saying that incorrectly. 509 yards with 4 touchdowns. What do you think about this game?
Oh, I tell you what, they were the first half. They were going up and down the field. I was just like, wow, where's this Kirk Cousins been all year? In fact, in the last couple of years, I mean, he didn't have these kind of stats against, when he played in Minnesota. It just seemed like it was, there was hardly any. The Falcons' defense in the first half looked putrid. I mean, it looked like Swiss cheese out there. They were going up and down. Tempe was throwing the ball to Evans and Godwin, and then the running attack was running. I do know that at the end of the first half, they just kind of shortened up, and they just didn't seem like they couldn't punch it in. And then in the second half, Tampa Bay lost the whole offense. I mean, you're not going to win a lot of games only scoring 2 field goals in the second half. And Atlanta just, he was just slinging the ball around her, and he was slinging it to Mooney and Drake London, Kyle Pitts. It seemed like that was working. So I thought it was a good game. I did have to laugh. That Koo kid from Atlanta was kicking a 43-yarder at the beginning, and then it was offsides on Tampa Bay. So they moved it in 5 more yards, and he still missed the kick. It's like they moved him in 5 more. Then he kicks at the end of the first half, and he kicks one from 50 and makes it. So I thought it was a very good, entertaining game.
Yeah, I think the Buccaneers just let this one slip through their hands. But this is what I was kind of bringing up. I brought it up on the past podcast that Atlanta just needs to learn how to win at the end, and they'll be good. I mean that win today or that win yesterday was really crucial for what I think the rest of this. Because now you talk about the division. This is a division win, and the Buccaneers cannot let this one fall through. You got to win this game. I think the second half you kind of put you took your foot off the pedal. I mean, only like you said, scoring 6, but at the same time too, like put them away. Bucky Irving's fumble in the fourth quarter was huge. I mean, that could have iced the. And then you get the pick against Kirk Cousins with like a minute 40 left, and then you still can't put it away. Like, come on, like
They give him the ball right back again.
yeah, you gave him
So
way
I mean, then they drove down and kicked a field goal to tie the game.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins threw 58, had 58 attempts for 42 out of 58, 509. It looked like Drake London had 12 catches and Darnell Mooney had 9. But the running attack, I mean, Bijan Robinson was 61 yards, but he wasn't a huge factor in this game. I mean, he did have 3 catches for 16 yards, but for what he has been primed up to be as this superstar, he really didn't. They didn't really need him in this game to win it, but they are going to have to use him more as time goes on because Tyler, the other
Algier.
guy, yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's good, but like he's not Bijan Robinson superstar status.
No. Most of he Bijan can and Juke and he's just a little bit better. I think he just gives them breathers while for Bijan. That's it. But yeah, it was just seemed like it was just. I mean, but he could. I mean, both teams in the first half was just throwing the ball up and down the field. I mean, both teams' defense was terrible. I mean, terrible. I mean, it was. I mean, they were just. I mean, next thing you know, it was 17 all, 2017. It was just like, I think if they could have scored that touchdown, uh, and they did score the touchdown right at the end of the half, but like I said, you get 6 points. You got to score more than 6 points in the
Yeah,
second half.
and usually on Thursday nights we kind of get boring or maybe not
Yeah.
really offensive games, and it was actually nice to see this kind of game. After seeing last week where the Buccaneers defense shut down The Eagles, I just expected more out of their defense coming into this week. I also thought this was a type of game that Kirk Cousins would not come to perform because it's not a Sunday afternoon game. It's a Thursday night primetime game. And really, if you honestly look at it, if the Buccaneers just run the ball out at the end with 1:44 to go, that is what we're talking about. Is like he had a great game up until the time mattered, but they gave it back and then he went down. And I think this Atlanta team, if they can just keep it going, keep that momentum going, you got to keep putting one step in front of each other to keep it going. But the Buccaneers, we went undefeated. They went undefeated. They lose to the Broncos, get a good win against the Eagles, and then lose this game. It's like you guys are just you're stepping on.
And this is a divisional game too. And
Yeah.
now Atlanta's 2-0. But now Atlanta's going to have to go on the road. These were three. They played three home games in a row. I mean, now it's going to get a little bit tougher because out of the five, you played three at home. They're going to have to start going on the road and start producing as well. But they're in the driver's seat for that division at 2-0.
Yeah, well, and they're tied with an overall record of 3-2 with the Buccaneers in that division as well. So, but it was a good game. I mean, it was fun little game to watch for a Thursday night. But so let's move on though. Let's talk about this Matt Sluka. So if you haven't been watching sports or you haven't been updated with this, let's give you a little basis of it. UNLV this year has been perfect. Has started out 3-0 initially. Matt Sluka was the quarterback for them. Okay. Matt Sluka came from Holy Cross the year before, transfers into UNLV. He shows up on a Monday after a win. Tuesday does not show up. Wednesday, he puts out a post that he is in the transfer portal and he will not be playing. And it's your usual post, right? Just saying thank you to the fans. But at the end, it talks about the reason why he's not playing anymore and he's transferred. And it was about money. It's the first time that we've seen someone be like, thank you all to the fans, but the reason I'm not playing is because of money. And if you look back 10 years, you'd be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a crime. But now with the NIL, this is a whole thing. Allegedly, he was promised $100,000 by the offensive coordinator to play at UNLV and was not received a dime for it. What do you think about this?
Here's the deal. I was under the understanding there was a handshake agreement. Well, if you don't have it on paper, you are SOL. I think he's kind of screwed. I did hear that he got paid $3,000 to transfer from a broker by the agent. So, I did hear. I was watching Matt Liner's wife, Josie Liner. She is an NIL attorney, and she said he could go after him for a statue of some kind of statue, only if he didn't get paid at all. But since he did get paid $3,000 of the $100,000, he doesn't have a leg to stand on. And I'll tell you, this is not good. I think Game Day had a couple of weeks ago where you may see a lot more of this. I think they're going to have to get it under control before it gets out of hand. And right now, the NCAA doesn't have nobody's doing anything with the NCAA because they know that the NCAA doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So,
and we kind of talked about this. We thought about bringing it up last week, and then we've kind of held out on this because we wanted to get all the facts. I understand in this industry of the media, you want to give the hot takes, but that's just not what I'm going to do. That's not what you want to do as well. Is like, let's get all the facts before we move forward. But I do agree. I mean, after hearing some of this stuff he was allegedly offered like $350,000 to $600,000 to go to a Power 5 or Power 4 school. And like even the CEO of Circa Resort was going to pay it up, but it was too late. This is the portion of where I think Kirk Herbstreit said it best on last week's College Game Day, where the players years ago did not have any power. And now the players have too much power. It is the wild, wild west. And we're going to keep it this way if nobody, like you said, steps up and starts making this an organization. Like where there's people saying, hey, you can or you can't do this. I remember when NIL first got announced and they were going to do this, some schools were like, well, we're going to set up a whole department into helping them get paid for it. This is pay to play. This is what it is anymore these days. I know it's all about name, image, and likeness. No, it's pay to play. I'm paying you to come play at my school. And so I just think that with this situation here, yes, it sucks for him, but this sucks for the rest of college football because this already puts a strike on, and it makes the old man like Nick Saban look right when you shouldn't even be paying these players. Don't be paying them anything now. Go back to the old way of where the colleges determine what they get and they do it on hush money. You know what I mean? So, but
Yeah, I don't know. I think they should get some kind of stipend. I think before the NIL, they were talking about doing stipends, and that if they graduated or they went there for so long, they would get so much of the money. But I think they're gonna have to do something, or you're gonna see a lot more cases like this. And why would you not get a written agreement? Never ever. Whoever was doing his kind of dealings, shame on you for not getting a written agreement. You've got to have something in writing saying I will come and do this, blah blah blah, under these kind of conditions and terms. You've got to have that in writing, man. And
well,
if you're doing by a handshake,
well, and I definitely agree. And I'm not for the players not getting paid. I'm for the players getting paid. I'm just saying that what this name, image, and likeness was made for is
yeah,
not what it is now. It is
no,
paid
no,
play
yep,
now.
you're right, you're
And
right.
I think like, Reese Davis on College Game Day said it perfect. Yes, it's a shame on the quarterback and the agent, but it's a shame on this offensive coordinator too, because let's not act like this ain't happening elsewhere. It's just
Right.
players coming out wanting to ruin their draft capabilities or where they're going to go and stuff like this. So it is bad on them. But, on the College Game Day too, not to hit on that too much, but they brought up I thought they had the best segment about this so far. But like Pat McAfee was like, it would have been my parents the one judging this. I wouldn't have had an agent. My parents didn't come from money. So I wouldn't have had an agent. My parents would have been handling it, and they would have got bamboozled too. They would have been
Yeah,
screwed over on this
yeah,
well too. So, and we've seen this. It's just happening way too often. Where now we're hearing about players that sign something that once they even got in the NFL, they're still paying back what this portion of the money was and all this stuff. It just needs to, like, there needs to be some control on what can happen and what can't happen, and there needs to be punishments on the schools when they break it,
yeah,
because if there's no
yep,
punishments, it is the wild wild west. It is
yep,
whatever they call it, like the prisoners are running the prison, right, or whatever,
yep,
like,
yep.
no,
Run the asylum. Prisoners are running the asylum. The
yes,
inmates are running the asylum. Yes.
yeah, and that's what I just think, because what I'm saying is, what does this mean for college football going forward? Is, like you
Well,
said, you're going to hear more stories about this for
well
sure.
I'll tell you what, Anthony. I think it's this week or next week. The Big Ten and the SEC are getting together for a meeting. I could see within my lifetime it being they're going to get away from the NCAA. They're going to start their own conference and their own TV deals and their own deals. I could see it.
Well, and that's what I've thought about this since the NIL came. It's an amateur and then professional. Can you see eventually where a 17-year-old like that Williams for Alabama, that wide receiver, he is a stud. I mean, he's a stud now in college. He just went against a Georgia defense, which Georgia's going to have players that are going to get drafted straight up they're going to get drafted, right? Can you see a player coming out of high school and going and playing the NFL?
I
Because
can't. I don't think their bodies are mature enough to do that. That's
I,
why they put the 3 year limit in there, because their bodies are not mature enough. They've gotten proven fact from the NFL. The NFL has said there's no way we'll ever do that because
yeah,
their
but
bodies are not mature enough. Not them, the people themselves, but their bodies are just not developed enough. I shouldn't say mature enough, developed enough for the tackling and the hitting that goes on in the NFL. I don't see it happening.
I see. I actually go the opposite way. I do see it happening, and why I say I see that happening is because I do see a player like Williams getting drafted, right, and maybe not starting that first year, but he's still making. Well, why would he go to the NFL when he can go to college and make more money because it's an
Yep.
amateur
Right,
level?
right,
And it's like, when do, like,
and get playing time and get playing time.
yeah, and I think that's where I'm just saying is, like, you see it, right? Like in soccer over in Europe, 17-year-old can play. Now, do I
Yeah,
agree? Yes. They don't get tackled the same. You can have a kid come out of high school that could potentially go play in the NBA. Like Zion Williamson, after playing in high school, could have went to the NBA straight. LeBron went to the NBA. Kobe, you name these people, and I get it. It's a different sport. It's not getting tackled like that. I totally understand that. But with what this NIL problem and situation is going on, it's like one of these things where now college is an amateurism, and then you're making it to the professionalism. But you can't even say it's amateurism because you're still getting paid more than if you just went straight to professionalism at
Yeah.
your age. So
Right.
they do need to find out a situation of how to cap this and understand this situation a lot better, because this can't happen. This is a bad look, and it gives all the older people that are like, I told you we shouldn't have played the players. It
Yeah.
gives them all the ammo they need to come back and be like, this is why. This is right here, why we told you not to do it. And that's why I say the Nick Saban, because I slightly feel that Nick Saban stopped coaching because of this. Like,
Well, I think that all the older coaches that are in the NCAA right now, uh, I think that they'll get out within the next 5 because of that. I
yeah,
think that some of the basketball coaches are getting out because of this.
yeah.
So I think they just they can't relate to what the younger uh, student athlete is doing right now. So
Well, and I think their coaching philosophy was always um, by not scaring them, but like the power levels, right?
right,
A lot of coaches in basketball, football, or whatever, they have that power over the player, and then when the player's coming in and getting paid almost as much as you are, okay, well now it's a little bit different, right? Now,
yep, yeah. Well, and they can transfer too.
yeah.
Now they only have to play their 1 year.
Well,
They only have to play their 1 year. All they got to do is play 3 games and register now.
well, and that's the part was you had to kiss their butt to get them there, but now you
Mm-hmm.
but to keep them there. So, but yeah, so that moves us to our must-watch games. I will say UNLV plays tonight. We're recording this on a Friday night. They play. They're still undefeated. They're ranked number 25 now. So keep an eye out for them. They could be one that makes the college playoffs as the conference winner outside of the Power Four. So definitely keep an eye on it. But for Saturday, our must-watch games. Our first one, we're talking about number 9 Missouri versus number 25 Texas A&M. Now, Texas A&M had that loss start the season to Notre Dame, but then it won 4 straight. They've had a backup quarterback for the past 3 weeks. We'll definitely have a challenge against Missouri, which they're coming to a huge road test. What do you think about this game?
I'm not convinced. Missouri's 6th ranked. I'm not convinced they're the team. I think they're very overrated this year. I mean, they've got a good quarterback in Brady Cook, and they've got that Burden that's the wide receiver. But he's going to have to start. He did not throw a ball farther than 20 yards last week. You're going to have to start throwing the ball down the field. I mean, and that place, you got the 12th man, loud, one of the top 5 loudest stadiums in college football. So, I mean, this is going to be, a tough one. And the coach from Mizzou, Drinkwich, he is 4-12 on the road so far in 3 seasons. That's not good. So, and it's supposed to be a hot one down there. It's going to be 92 degrees for a noon kickoff. That's going to be hot. So you've got the heat on top of 102,000 people playing there. I'll tell you what, that's going to be tough. But Texas A&M's going to have to play better. They're going to have to lean on Moss and Daniels, up there. And that quarterback, the quarterback's still up in the air. They don't know if they're going to start Reichman or Weichman or Reed. So I think Mizzou, they're going to take the crowd out, and they're going to have to stretch the field. They're going to have to and play better, just play better. I think they're overrated, and this will be probably the true test because really they haven't played anybody. Boston College, some of them other smaller, I mean, not smaller schools, but they haven't really played anybody yet so far. So this is going to be a tough challenge for them.
Yeah, I think Missouri has had some games, even at home, against schools that have no right to be on the same field as them. I would love to see Missouri win this game. I totally would, with the situation that, another SEC school that nobody was talking about in the beginning of the year, now in the top 10. I just fear that they're going to come in here and just lay. I think with Texas A&M, we saw it with Notre Dame, right? We saw it with the Notre Dame Texas
Right.
A&M game, that environment is crazy, right? So can you get the crowd out of it? Can you keep them out of it as well? I mean, there's going to be plays where they're going to make it. The crowd gets back into the game, but can you weather the crowd?
Yeah, the 12th man. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
well,
I
that's a tough place to play.
and I think if you're Texas A&M, you got to stay with Reed. You went 3-0. I think the during that time as well too, your passing offense has stepped up. I just think you got a momentum going. Keep it going. If you
Yeah.
come in here and switch quarterbacks, now it's the possibility of if he has a bad game and things like that. I just think with the dynamic offense that the freshman has brought, why not keep him playing? I mean, I,
And
I
go with the hot hand.
yeah, you have to in this game. But I definitely agree. Brady Cook has to play better in this game. He's not that he hasn't had bad games. I mean, he's got 200 yards passing, or all 4 straight games. But it's the fact of like this has to be a perfect game because you're on the road in a tough environment. You have to play perfect. And I just don't know if I see them doing it in this game. We might have to talk about this one later when we go over betting. But both defenses for both teams are very good too. So this will be a game where maybe the turnover ratio might be who leads us in this
The
game.
battle. Right.
That leads us to our second game of the must watch. Number 12, Ole Miss at South Carolina. Can Ole Miss bounce back after a disappointing loss to Kentucky last week? What do you think about this game?
Yeah, Jackson Dart's going to have to play better. Ole Miss just looked very lethargic, like they weren't ready to play. And he's got to get his receivers going. And the defense is going to have to set up better than they did last week against Kentucky. This is going to be a tough one because that place is another loud place in South Carolina to play at, and South Carolina's got to run the ball and play great defense. As LSU, they barely beat South Carolina at South Carolina. So I think this is going to be another tough one for Ole Miss. And they're going to have to battle back. They got to step it up. I imagine Lane Kiffin will have them ready to play as far as this one after that bad loss against Kentucky last week at home.
I do too. I think this is a game. But it's not a game that I think. It's not one that would surprise me if it comes down to the end. And why I say that is just because the way South Carolina plays, they can keep it a close game. I mean, we saw it with LSU earlier in the year. South Carolina was winning that game. I mean, they should have beat LSU. They gave them too many mistakes, and that's what led to them obviously losing the game against LSU. But like Ole Miss, my worry about them is you lose this last week's game, Kentucky, and if you're looking forward, Ole Miss plays LSU next week, and then they play another ranked team the week after that. Do not look past this South Carolina team. They're getting that starting quarterback back from the LSU game, and I forgot his name, but they're bringing him back. So if he comes back and starts playing, I was just looking it up. I can't find it. But if they bring back that quarterback, like I could see you guys just giving up too many points and then be like, okay, well, we'll throw the ball deep and we'll come back. If you don't, you're going to lose another game and then you're done. You're done. If you lose this game, Ole Miss, you're done with the college playoffs. I don't.
Because the schedule gets tougher as it goes.
Yes, and that's what I just think with Ole Miss. Like, do I think Lane Kiffin's going to have the boys ready? Yes, but are they going to perform? And are they not going to look past them? Because this South Carolina team has one loss, and it is that LSU team. So they've been playing okay throughout the year. I think they were looking past a little bit Kentucky, and Kentucky punched them in the mouth. And now you're coming into another tough environment. Are you going to perform? But this is a Lane Kiffin team that I feel like we see every year. I mean, I was riding them out with the betting because they were just spanking these bad teams. But then, like, it always seems like when the lights show up and it's time for Lane Kiffin's team to, like, play the game that they need to play, they just shit the bed. So I just think this is a look forward game. I think they're looking at LSU next week. They're thinking, okay, if we win this game and then we beat LSU, we'll be back in the driver's seat. Just don't look past South Carolina on this one.
Oh, most definitely, because like I said, it's going to get tougher. It ain't going to get easier in the SEC. So,
and then that moves us to our final must-watch game: number 10 Michigan versus Washington. Now, if you remember, this was our 2024 national championship game, but now it's just a regular conference game. Two teams that are totally different with different coaches, different quarterbacks. What do you think about this game?
A rematch of last year's national championship, but this ain't the same two teams. I mean, they lost a lot. Both teams lost a lot to the NFL. Both teams are going in opposite directions. Michigan's going to use the ground and pound of Mullins and Edwards, and Washington's got Will Rogers. Will Rogers. I've heard of that name before. I think he's from played at Mississippi State. He might be like your age, Anthony. I just feel like he's just been around college football for like 10 years. You know, if Michigan gets the ground game going, they might be able to take the crowd out. This is going to be a tough one too. It's tough to play at Husky Stadium. The Wolverines haven't won at Washington since 1970. For all you fans that listen to the podcast, I was 1 year old at that time. And they haven't won a road game west of the Mississippi since 1989 at UCLA. I think might be a tougher game than what everybody's thinking. But I think with the quarterback, with Orgy, if they got him set up, just don't lose it for us. So if they could get him going and get that running attack and that Michigan defense, I think they'll be all right. But if they let Washington play around for a while with Will Rogers, because he could throw the ball down the field, I think they got a shot at it.
Yeah, and I mean, you definitely said at the beginning too that both teams are kind of going the opposite ways. I cannot believe that Michigan's back to number 10. I mean, I understand that they had the win over USC.
USC, right?
It was like, okay, so they're back, but I don't know if USC is that team this year. I mean, we'll see as the year goes on. But do we forget that they got spanked by Texas? I mean, like that was an old school ass whooping. And so Michigan being back in number 10, it's kind of surprising. But I do think with this Washington team, they lost to Rutgers last week. They lost to Washington State the week before. Like, they're on a 2-game slide. This might be their national championship, right? This might be this game where they got to pull it out just to have a good stamp on the season that they beat a top 10 ranked team. So I do think it's going to come down. I think it's going to, with both running attacks, I don't know what the over-under is, and I should look that up. But the over-under of this game, because I think it's going to be a lot of running the ball. It's just whether the defense can stop the running attack. I just think Michigan's running attack is still dominant like it was. Maybe not as dominant as last year, but still very dominant. It's Big Ten football. And yeah. I wanted to look it up before we started the podcast, a stat of these teams playing Big Ten football now, the ones that switched over from the Pac-12 into Big Ten. Because they haven't done as hot. USC beat Wisconsin last week, but they were down at half. And if Wisconsin would have just, kept a good second half, they would have beat USC last week. And then you got Michigan beating USC the week before. I would love to see what these teams come into the Big Ten and how they're doing. Another thing about this game too is with Washington, I've always just heard, never been out that way, but that it's like a hard kind of stadium to get to. But it's like gorgeous because it's like right off. Isn't it right off of like?
I think it's off of a lake. I think. Yeah.
You can bring your boats up or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like hard to get to. So like the travel, you kind of like fly in, but then you take a bus to the place, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. I don't know if that'll play into anything with Michigan. But what was a national championship now is just a conference game. This is a must win for Michigan, right? Must win. You lose this game, I think you're another team that we're talking about. Nope, you're done. You're done. You're not going to be back in this whole conversation. And I put it on you guys 2 weeks ago about USC and said, you guys got to nut up or shut up. I think this is another game that if you guys just look past them, I think Washington could steal this one from you. And Washington's actually favored in this game. That's something that someone knows something, I feel like, about this game too. So keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, that's kind of a weird deal that they're favored, but Michigan's number 10. It's kind of like, it's like really weird. So
yeah, it's one of those ones where who knows what. So speaking of bets, let's get on to our bets. So start me out with your first bet today.
All right, let's go with Indiana and Northwestern. Indiana's 5-0. First time they've been 5-0 since 67, and they're averaging 55 points a game against a 2-2 Northwestern team. We don't know what's going on with them. And their next three, Northwestern has their next 3 out of 4 games are on the road, so this is going to be tough. Indiana's led by Kurt Rourke. He's thrown for almost 1,400 yards in 5 games. That's pretty good. And his defense and his top receivers, Elijah Surratt. Indiana's defense, Ian Fisher, he's their top defensive guy. Northwestern on the offense is led by Mike Wright and AJ Indiana has covered the spread the last four games. Give me Indiana, and I'll give you 13.5.
Yeah, I think a Northwestern situation. Well, it used to be a season ticket holder to Northwestern. Enjoyed their old stadium. Now going to be a new stadium eventually, but the last year of controversy and stuff has unfortunately just unraveled that program. Indiana's done the opposite. They have just nothing but took a step forward. So I like that bet. That was one of those ones I was definitely looking at. For me, I'm staying in the Big Ten as well. I'm looking at the Iowa versus Ohio State. Iowa's only got one loss this year, lost to Iowa State. Ohio State's undefeated. They got the running attack. They got the passing game. They haven't played anyone yet, but at the same time, they've kind of just beat the piss out of every team they've played. Iowa always has struggles scoring the ball. Well, guess what? Ohio State don't give up touchdowns. So the points in this game is 18.5. I like Ohio State winning by more than 18.5. I will be honest with you. I think it's a shutout. I don't think they give up 1 point to Iowa. And Ohio State, can they score 21 points? I think they can do it easily. So I'm taking 18.5 Ohio State on that game.
I think if this game was at Iowa, I think it would be a different. I'd maybe lean more towards because Iowa's got a decent quarterback, Kate McNamara. He did play. He played for Michigan, so I mean he might have a little bit insight on what goes on in Ohio State. But yeah, Iowa just can't score touchdowns, and that's what you're going to have to do against that. I think Iowa's defense can hold them for a little bit, but in the second half, I think Ohio State just runs away.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I think there's gonna be a shutout. I don't even know if they're gonna score a point. We'll see how that one ends up. What do you got for your second bet?
I got Alabama Vanderbilt. Ooh, this is going to be. I don't think this is going to be a good one. I think this is going to be a real good one. Alabama's coming off that emotional win against Georgia, 42-35 last week, and Vanderbilt's coming off a bye, so they're going to should be well rested. Alabama's got Jalen Milroe and company, and the defense led by Q Robinson. Vanderbilt is led by Diego Pava, and he's on defense, they're led by Corday Sanders. Alabama has covered the spread 4 out of the 5 road games, and Vanderbilt has failed to cover 8 of the last 9 games against top 5 opponents. I think Alabama has a letdown, so give me Vanderbilt, and I'll take the 23.5.
And remember, this is the Vanderbilt team that gave a run for the money with Mizzou that we just talked about earlier too. So I like that, and you always see this. You always see these teams kind of like after a big win like that come into a game where they're resting majority of the time. The practices are a little bit lighter because they had such a violent game the week before. They went with Georgia, went down to the end. I like this. I like the 23. I mean, I would definitely cook this one up. I definitely like this one as well. I'm staying in the Big Ten. Another Big Ten game. I'm going back to that Michigan-Washington game. I understand it's at Washington. I still think that Michigan still needs to prove themselves. But when you look at on the paper of what talent as a what team, Michigan has way better talent than Washington does. And them getting 1.5 points, I'm taking them on money line. I'm taking them with the point. I'm taking Michigan all the way on this one. I think Michigan just shows again one more time, hey, we're the better team in the Big Ten, or from the national championship last year, that they're the team that's going to win the national championship. I think Michigan wins this one easily. I maybe not easily. Let me back up there. I don't think they win it easily, but I think they handle it when it comes time to take control of it. I like them all across the board on this one.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think they're just from top to bottom. Their defense is stout, and that offense. If you can continue to ground and pound with those two guys, and Orgy doesn't, throw a lot of mistakes, I think they're going to get, because I don't think Washington's that good. They lost a lot of NFL talent last year from last year's team.
Well, what do you got for your third bet?
And third bet is a little late night action out west. Little Miami versus California. Hey, College Game Day is going to be there. Pat's going to be there. So Miami is led by the Heisman candidate Cam Ward. Miami just barely got by Virginia Tech 38-34 on the other side of the ball. You got a Cal team that should have beat Florida State last week. I mean, they had them right where they wanted them, and they're led by Fernando Mendoza, their quarterback. Miami has covered 5 of the last 6 road games, non-AP ranked teams. I think Miami will be too much for Cal. So I'll take Miami, and I'll give you the 10.
And that is actually funny you bring that because that was going to be my bonus bet of this weekend. But that one, it started at -8, and I hit it at -8 instead of this -10. I still think they'll win by 10, but it already went up. It already changed 2 points since it opened, and I definitely agree. I think that Miami now needs to prove themselves. They went back in the top 10 because of their performance last week. I think that was kind of a fluke because it was a Friday night game instead of a Saturday game. Now you're going to play a late Saturday night game for your time because it's all the way out in California. I still think they handle this one. California is barely beating some of these teams, so we'll kind of see how that one. For my final bet, I'm talking about one of our must-watch games. I'm going back to that Missouri versus Texas A&M. I'm going on upset alert. I'm taking Texas A&M, giving 2.5. 2.5. They're not getting. They're the 25th team and Mizzou's 9. I think Texas A&M handles this. I like the 2.5 because it's a field goal difference. I think it is going to come down to the end if Texas A&M is going to have a chance. But it's my upset of this weekend. I think Texas A&M with that crowd performs enough to get that 2.5 plus win. What do you think about that one?
I like that one. I think that heat. I think you got a noon start and you got 102,000 and it's supposed to be 92 degrees. It's gonna be a hot one down there. I don't know if Missouri can handle all that. I'm just not a big fan. I've watched them play and they just don't play up to their potential. The back of their baseball card is what some people have said. They just don't. They're just not there yet. I mean, they've got that burden. They're talking a top 10 pick for wide receiver for this kid out of Missouri. So I mean, and they just don't seem like they're not very. The one game I watched against Boston College, they're not disciplined either. That Burden kid almost got thrown out of the game because of unsportsmanlike calls. So I'm just not. I think Texas A&M can jump up there and get Missouri.
Yes. Well, so that gives us our bets. Now, if you do bet with us, please bet responsibly. We're just two goons talking sports. So if you do bet, just please bet responsibly. This is the weekend before the big weekend, right? The weekend of October 12th that everyone's been talking about since the season started. So this week is not as hyped up, is not as crazy. It is good games. I mean, for me personally, I just want to sit and watch college football. I want to watch football every day. So I'm going to enjoy this Saturday of games. But next week, you guys have to tune in next Saturday for our college football because it is the day. If you're getting married on October 12th, shame on you. Shame on you for you're making your people have to miss this day of college football, okay? And good thing you didn't invite me because I wouldn't be there, okay? It is good.
What do we count, Anthony? 5 or 6 ranked games that are in the top 25. There's at least 5 to 6 games that are ranked. The games are both teams are ranked.
Well, and I think you have 2 games that are top 10 or top like right there. Like you got Texas, Oklahoma, Penn State, USC. You got Purdue and Illinois. You got Ohio State, Oregon. Ohio State going to Oregon. You have LSU, Ole Miss. You have just big games. Is Colorado going to pull an upset against Kansas State? Like you have huge games next week. But the Red River Showdown is what is the cream of the crop. Texas and Oklahoma next week.
I agree.
But you'll have to definitely stream in next week or listen next week to ours. But we got a couple of more episodes before we get to that next week. We'll be back on Sunday for a podcast for the NFL talking about that, as there's some good news going on with that, with players possibly getting traded, injuries, and all that as well. So please listen on Sunday. We'll give you our must-watch and our bets. If you like what we do, like, share, comment. If you don't, well, that's a shame on you. But we want to thank you guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you on Sunday.